Chief Porter, Chief Jackson, and myself down for the presentation of the Police Department and Fire Department Awards, and want to thank everyone for being here to be part of it. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, we wanted to take a few minutes to publicly recognize several individuals who we felt went above and beyond to assist your public safety departments in various capacities. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman of our Awards Accommodations Committee, Officer Larry Vacala, and Larry's going to read the awards. So, Mayor, if you wouldn't mind joining me up front.
Good evening. I'd like to call forward Ms. Sean Pittman, first to get an award for a certificate of recognition. On December 26, 2012, at 2:59 p.m., Ms. Pittman, who was a route carrier for the U.S. Postal Service, noticed a considerable amount of mail collecting at her residence and also noted a poor condition of a house here in Downers Grove. Ms. Pittman took the effort to make contact with the resident with negative results. Ms. Pittman took the initiative to contact Downers Grove Police Department and have officers respond. Officers were forced to make entry into the residence and discovered that the resident of the house was living in deplorable conditions and had no working heat at the house. The resident also had not eaten in days and appeared to be extremely malnourished. If not for Ms. Pittman's intervention, the victim may have perished inside the home. The victim was transported to the hospital and provided with referrals to social services to assist him. Ms. Pittman went above and beyond her duties as a mail carrier to intervene in an obvious serious situation. It is because of her actions that Ms. Pittman is awarded a certificate of recognition from the Downers Grove Police Department. I would now like to call forward Susan Lawrence. On September 7, 2012, at 1:32 p.m., Susan Lawrence had observed suspicious activity and called 911 after suspecting that two men approaching her neighbor's back door were there to burglarize the residence. Ms. Lawrence did not know that her neighbor was inside by herself with her young children. Ms. Lawrence confronted the two men and inquired why they were at the residence. The two men, in turn, immediately left as Ms. Lawrence continued to relay information to dispatch when she called 911. It was determined later that the two men were indeed there to burglarize the residence, and Ms. Lawrence's actions not only prevented the burglary, but possibly a situation that could have escalated into a more serious crime. Several residential burglaries were closed with the arrest of the two subjects that were confronted by Ms. Lawrence. It is because of her selfless act and courage in confronting the two would-be burglars that Susan Lawrence is awarded a commendatory certificate by the Downers Grove Police Department. I would like to now call forward Petty Officers Patrick Burke, Sean Murphy, and David Runyon from the U.S. Naval Recruiter's Office here in Downers Grove. On June 11, 2012, at approximately 7 p.m., U.S. Naval Recruiters Petty Officer Patrick Burke, Sean Murphy, and David Runyon were sitting in the recruiting office in the Green Knoll Shopping Plaza when they noticed a smell of smoke in their office. Patrick Burke noted that the smell seemed to be coming from the ceiling area. Burke decided to lift the ceiling tile to see what was going on and observed two subjects in a storage room next to the office ingesting drugs. Recruiter Burke got down and had Recruiter Runyon dial 911 and provide a description of the offenders to the VOC as officers were en route. Recruiter Burke observed the subjects trying to leave, so all 3 recruiters confronted the subjects and had a conversation with them to delay them until officers arrived. Downers Grove Police Department officers still had not arrived on scene, and the offenders were beginning to flee in a vehicle, which the recruiters were able to provide the police department with the description as well as the license plate number. Officers subsequently stopped the vehicle in the parking lot, recovering several grams of heroin, as well as some items that were stolen from the storage facility. It is because of the recruiters' actions that these offenders were apprehended and charged with burglary as well as unlawful possession of controlled substance. Petty officers Patrick Burke, Sean Murphy, and David Runyon went out of their way to provide officers with the necessary information needed to apprehend these 2 subjects. They may have continued to become a threat to our community if not for their intervention. It is because of their action, each one of them is being recognized with a commendatory certificate from the Downers Grove Police Department. And lastly, I'd like to call forward Brian George. On June 17, 2012, at approximately 6:40 p.m., officers were dispatched to a location for a subject that was unresponsive and laying at the bottom of a swimming pool. Upon arrival by Officer Kachava, he observed that Brian George was holding a combative victim up and restraining him from drowning himself. It was learned that the victim attempted to commit suicide by drowning himself in the swimming pool. Brian George entered the swimming pool and rescued the victim from the bottom of the pool and brought him back to the surface so he could breathe. If it wasn't for the quick action of Brian George, it is believed that the victim would have drowned. Mr. George also assisted the officers and paramedics with getting the victim out of the pool and transported her to the hospital. Citizen Brian George disregarded his own personal safety to enter the swimming pool and rescue the victim who was resisting him. It is because of that Brian George is awarded our life-saving award. I'd now like to call forward Mary Winterstrom to present an award from the police department and the fire department.
This next award is, whoops. Make sure I'm on here. This next award is presented on behalf of both the fire department and the police department. Can I please have Troop 181 step forward? All members are welcome. We present this partnership award to Boy Scout Troop 181. Over the years, this Boy Scout troop has assisted with Night at the Firehouse open house and the annual Passport to Safety event. They have conducted color guard presentations, assisted with parking and traffic, served refreshments, dressed as Sparky and McGruff, and last but not least, they have always helped with the cleanup at the conclusion of our events. Here to receive the award is Troop 181. Hawken Fredrickson will accept the plaque. Troop 181, we appreciate all that you do for us and the citizens in our community.
All right. Thank you, Chief Porter. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the Downers Grove Fire Department is fortunate to have partners such as the Boy Scout Troop, who have done a lot of things in safety and assistance to the community, and we appreciate that. We also have others that have also stepped up and done selflessness things to help save lives before we arrive on the scene. So I'm proud to be able to personally thank and recognize the efforts of several of these partners we have here tonight. So if I have Marcia Giesler, please step forward, and the Mayor, if you join me again, we'll step up front, and we'll do the Fire Department portion of the awards.
Good evening. I would like to ask Ms. Cynthia Ivey to come forward, and she is representing the residents in Chicago Lombard by Marriott. The scene of a fire can be chaotic, confusing, and devastating. For a homeowner, it can be one of the worst days of their lives. Trying to figure out what to do first is a daunting prospect, especially when your world has just turned upside down. What do you do if you don't have friends nearby or relatives? And it has been determined that you cannot move back into your home that night. Many people have never even thought about this. For more than 10 years, the Residents Inn Chicago Lombard by Marriott has partnered with the Downers Grove Fire Department and offered a free night's lodging for the victims of residential fires. This generous service includes lodging for the entire family and their pets, access to the internet, and full use of kitchenettes and a continental breakfast. The Downers Grove Fire Department is very grateful to the Marriott for partnering with us to assist our residents in their time of need. We thank you for your continued goodwill and a strong sense of community. Thank you. Next, I would like to ask Brendan Harrison and his family to step forward, or just Brendan by himself, which is fantastic. Okay, on March 10th, 2013, at 1:20 in the morning, 14-year-old Brendan Harrison was awakened by the sound of crackling in the kitchen of his family's home. He insisted that his mother get out of bed to check on the noise. Mrs. Harrison opened her bedroom door to notice an orange glow and knew that she had a fire in her house. Mr. Harrison quickly removed the burning humidifier to the outside. Brendan had alerted his family so very early on that the humidifier hadn't even generated enough smoke to activate the smoke alarms. Due to Brendan's insistence, his entire family was alerted, escaped, and waited outside for the fire department to check on the house for any further danger. Brendan's actions are especially noteworthy since his autism often makes it difficult to communicate with others, and his mother tells us he is very much afraid of fire. So even in the face of all of these things, Brendan did everything the fire department would want anyone to do. Congratulations, Brendan. What a special night. Next, I would like to ask Maria Brutus to please come forward. On Saturday, May 18th, 2013, Downers Grove paramedics were dispatched to the Bohemian Garden restaurant for a subject with shortness of breath. The patient actually had a partial to complete airway obstruction while eating. Maria tells us that a busboy found him in the bathroom and started yelling, "Maria, Maria, please come quickly." Maria is an employee of the restaurant and a nursing student at St. Xavier University. She jumped into action and physically removed the obstruction from the patient's mouth. According to the Downers Grove paramedics, they arrived to assess the patient, who is now fully able to breathe on his own. Thank you to Maria for truly acting as the first responder in this incident. Thank you. All right. Would the following people please come to the front? Stephen Bolano, Svetlana Kapala, Jeffrey Rowe, Jennifer Hegaton, Ryan Stanis, Edward Benderitis, David Rowe, Jeffrey Bauman, Patricia Margavero, Evelyn Spencer, and/or Danielle Green. These people are all employees of the Downers Grove Health and Wellness Center. On January 24th, 2013, at approximately 6:30 p.m., the Downers Grove paramedics were called to the Good Sam Health and Wellness Center for a man down with an AED already in use. Personnel on the scene stated that the patient had fallen and become unresponsive and pulseless. These members of the Good Samaritan Health and Wellness Center staff called 911, assessed the patient, placed him on an AED, and began CPR, which lasted for approximately 1 minute. Due to their training and coordinated efforts, the patient began spontaneous respirations and became responsive and alert. The paramedics then arrived and were able to transfer a viable patient to the emergency room for further care. And before you clap, I would like to tell you that the person whose life they basically saved is here with us tonight, and that is probably a bigger reward than anything we can give you. And that is Mike, and his wife, Lois, is just as happy as can be. Okay? Some of these people actually had to work tonight. For all we know, they're reviving someone else. So we'll give you all the certificates, and you can take those back to them. Okay. Oop. Picture. Lori did tell me they may hang that near the AED at the Wellness Center. One more, and this also is for the Downers Grove Health and Wellness Center staff. Erin Holland, Kirsten Connor, Kathleen Baldwin, Jennifer Hegaton, go back up there, and Jeffrey Rowe. Okay. On October 13th, 2012, at approximately 10:15 a.m., the Downers Grove Fire Department was called for a patient at the Good Samaritan Health and Wellness Center, and bystanders reported that the patient was on the treadmill when he suddenly collapsed to the floor and became unresponsive. These Wellness Center staff members activated the EMS system, applied an AED 1 minute after the patient had collapsed, and provided CPR. Due to their training and coordinated efforts, the patient began breathing on his own. The paramedics then transferred a viable patient to the emergency room for further care. And I believe their patient is here to support them tonight also. Rick and his wife, Kathy, I believe. Thank you for your support. Thank you very much. You got to ding the deputy chief here. Thank you.
You know, tonight you witnessed a tradition that recognized the citizens who performed acts of selflessness and helped others in the time of need. But before we conclude, I'd like to touch base a little bit about traditions and fire service traditions. One of the most important things in a firefighter's career is the value placed on tradition. Traditions are customs or practices that are passed from one generation to the next. So as every one of us has been touched by at least one tradition. Many are family-oriented, like the holiday celebrations or even the family reunions. In the fire service, we have many traditions as well. From the patch on our shoulder, to the badge pinning ceremony, or the bagpipes being played at a fallen firefighter's funeral. These are just to name a few. From the moment a new firefighter is taken into the department family, they are introduced to fire service traditions. These customs are very symbolic, and they represent the meaning of becoming a firefighter, their service to the community, and being part of another family, a brotherhood that is a fire service. Tonight I'd like to discuss a few of our traditions that we have in the fire department. Let's start with the badge. The badge is presented to a new firefighter as a symbol of the public's faith and trust in us. The firefighter who wears the badge is willing to sacrifice their lives for others, just as the Crusaders sacrificed their lives for their fellow man so many years ago. Some of the traditions we have today come from previous generations of firefighters. A tradition of pushing of the fire truck comes from an age-old practice of firemen pushing their hose wagons and pumps into the fire barns once a fire was out. So they unhooked the wagons and they unhooked the horses and they got them fed. We continued that practice within the fire department. When Station 2 was opened for the first time back in 2008, the firefighters pushed the antique fire engine into the bay before the other apparatus. This was the symbol to our past, present, and future firefighters that duty, pride, and tradition continue within each of us. And even though we move into a modern world, we still have traditions of our founding brothers firefighters. If it wasn't for those firefighters that came before us, we would not be here where we are today. The most important tradition is the honor of the firefighter's retirement. When a firefighter retires, we memorialize that firefighter, the duty and service to the community. Each firefighter that comes on the job makes his mark on the department. One way or another, that firefighter has made a difference, whether it's saving someone's life or teaching fire safety in our schools to our children. That firefighter made a difference. So we honor that firefighter for his many years of service, commitment, and dedication to the community. We have retirement celebration on their last day of the job. Everybody's invited. Family, friends, fellow firefighters, the community, and everyone, just because we want to thank them for the sacrifice they made throughout the years. The Fire Department Honor Guard raises the American flag in the morning of their last shift in their honor. And the Fire Honor Guard lowers a flag at the end of the shift and presents it to a retiring firefighter as a token of appreciation from the community for their dedication and sacrifice. The last tradition I'd like to share with you is a tradition of respect to our fallen firefighters. We recently laid to rest a retired brother firefighter after his long battle with cancer. He was one that made a difference in many lives and in my life and my career. He mentored me in the rescue field where I learned valuable rescue techniques which I passed on. We honored him with a firefighter's funeral as a way to thank him for what he has done to the fire service and to the community. During his ceremony, like all other firefighter funerals, we followed a traditional custom ringing of the bells. Throughout most of history, a firefighter life has been closely associated to the ringing of the bells. As they begin their hours of duty, it was the bell that started them off. Throughout the day and the night, each alarm was sounded by a bell, which was called to fight fires and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizen. When the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, the bell rang 3 times to signal the end. Our brother, who passed away, completed his task. His duty's well done, and we rang that bell 3 times in the memory of and in tribute to his life and service in the fire department and to the community. These are just a few of the many traditions that we have in the fire department and in the fire service. So when you hear the sirens and see the firefighters, you'll know a little bit more about what the firefighters represent: duty, pride, and tradition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. Wow, very impressive. Thank you for those presentations, and more importantly, thank you to everyone who was recognized here tonight for some outstanding acts, selfless acts that really go to the core of why we think this is such a great community, because it's the people who are living and working and helping their neighbors and their friends and even strangers on a day-to-day basis. So on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for everything that you've done.